Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. We're going to slide back a little bit. We haven't had all of the officers on, and we were doing a little bit of inventory the other day and went, wait a second, we've missed Bob Miller. How many years now are you into your treasurer's position? Is this 4, 5, 5th year?
I think it's 5.
5 years,
5
yes.
years.
Yes, Bob and I came in when we... I always like to say the word bifurcated. When we bifurcated the Secretary Treasurer's position several years ago, Bob took the money route, and I took the wordsmithing route and the recorder's route, and we tag teamed it for several years. And Bob stayed on and managing the business of NSPS. So welcome, Bob. We appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's just start in real quick here. Bob Miller, surveyor. Who are you? Where are you? And what's going on in your life right now?
Okay. Well, I've been surveying since 1971. I always like to tell the story of how I got into surveying because I think it's so familiar with other people. But first, I'll give you a little background of where I'm at. I'm at Horizon Engineering in Pennsburg, Pennsylvania. If you want to know where that is, if you're familiar with any counties, I am right where 4 counties meet: Montgomery, Lehigh, Berks, and Bucks. So it's a good place. I've been here 15 years, and I'll get into the story of how I got here a little later, but I'm serving as the Vice President and Director of Surveying here. I have a cast of 6 surveyors working with me. The company is only 12 people. When I came on 13 years ago, there were 33 people, and that was in 2007 when the famous recession. And we went down to 6. So I got to know everybody real close. And this is where we're at now. But anyway, going back to my start, I was going to college in Southwest Pennsylvania at California State University. I was in computer science. Wanted to work at the best computer science labs in the state school system. There's 16 state school systems in Pennsylvania, and they were the cheapest. And since I was paying for my own freight, I wanted to make sure I went to the place that had the best computers, and that was California. My brother-in-law's brother also went there, and luckily I had a ride for a few months until I had my own car. Anyway, started out there in the math field and getting into the computers. And during that time, I had the unfortunate happening of my father passing away. And I was 18 at the time. So I went home, and my mother was living by herself then. So I stayed with her for the holidays, came back, finished the year. And then I stayed home for a while. I did realize as I was going to school there that I loved math, but I couldn't see myself sitting in front of a computer the rest of my life. And surveying, working outside and doing the math, just that was a perfect opportunity, something that I know in talking to advisory boards everywhere and interviewing students. They think that's a great thing. So I decided to go. At the time, I was a musician. I played drums since I was 8 years old, and I was really excited to get into symphonic timpani. I really wanted to be a symphonic timpanist, kettle drum, some people would say. And I went to Westchester University. I tried to get in there for math or for the music. And that's when I was really taken back by the system, because I had very high board scores. But the 5 parts that I took for the test, the one was singing. They put music in front of you, and it was like opera style. Now we want you to sing, ah, ah. I failed that part. And I did great in all the other parts, and I didn't get in. And meanwhile, my stepbrother, my mom had remarried by then, he had a football scholarship and a letter, and his board scores were 500 points lower than mine, and he got in. That's it. I hate the system. I'm getting out. I drove a salad truck delivering potato and macaroni salad for a few months. Then I went skiing and spent a lot of money. At that time, $350 for ski equipment was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought ski equipment, and the second time out, I was doing so great until I tried to take that last hill and went that straight over the mogul and broke my leg.
Oh.
And by the way, I didn't ski until last year. I tried it again, and I was couldn't stay up. So, but anyway, then both my brother-in-laws were surveyors. One worked for the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and one worked at an engineering firm in Reading, Pennsylvania. And I decided, they talked me. My one brother-in-law talked me into coming to work for him. He said, while you're in the cast on your leg, you'll learn how to draft. And when you get out, you'll become a surveyor. You'll go out in the field. That was the start. Over the years, I've worked for 11 different companies. I was with that company 5 years, and I really didn't learn too much. I realize now that the guys that I was working with were too interesting and having a lot of fun on the job and not really teaching me anything. Then I took a job with Thomas Gibbons Surveying. And at the time, Thomas Gibbons was the Pennsylvania Society of Land Surveyors state president. So I found out all about the society. I joined the society in 1976, and I've been a member ever since. And he really taught me a lot about what surveying's all about. And you have to, something I like to tell people is, back at that time, Tom told me, he said, if you're walking down the street, if I'm walking down the street and I see another surveyor coming, I'm going to cross the street because I don't want to talk to them. There was no camaraderie between surveyors.
Sure.
It was not a fun time. And the society really did a lot of work to try to get that, to stop that. At the same time, Philadelphia had their survey regulators that did not mingle at all with surveyors from the rest of the state. We got those involved. And in fact, Carl Craig was state president, and he was a survey regulator. So things really changed. In 93, I became the state president. And here I am, 11 companies later, and I'm really secure and planning my retirement in 3 years.
Very good. It's something I was thinking of while you were mentioning that there's so much that's pushed on, especially the millennials and now Gen Z, of not being loyal to a company, not being loyal to some certain amount of people. And I look back at a lot of surveying firms and a lot of surveyors I know that, while I guess it's kind of perceived as job hopping, most of the time a surveyor is looking for a better opportunity. Like you just said, you weren't in some place where you weren't growing. So rather than staying loyal, you went somewhere to learn more, to expand your career.
Yes. And every place, I can look back and there's some places I lasted 6 months. And that was when my brother-in-law started his own company and I realized he couldn't run a company.
Yeah.
And I learned how to lay block. There was a lot of things I learned there, but I wasn't, getting anywhere in surveying. But yes, I do not regret anywhere I worked. I did have my own business back from 93 to 98. I partnered up with I say now he was a genius. He was only 30 years old and he was coming from a company where he was making $300,000 and could take a book on surveying. He could read it that night and come in the morning and know what I'm talking about. He didn't know how to pay Uncle Sam though.
Yeah.
I paid for that, but even at that point, I learned so much about running a business because I was the technical end, he was the business end, and he was doing a great job other than what I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not going very well. I know when this happened, the management came in and said how we were losing money. And I didn't want to quit at that time. I knew I couldn't stay there because we had differences of opinion, principles. And I just thought, well, I don't want to leave here in the red. And in about a year, I got us in the black, and he still has that company to this day.
Oh, so, good. Well, good.
Yeah, but the diversity of going to all these companies, you just learn more and more. And it's just like I did a lot of construction stakeout for residential subdivisions. And then I came here, and when that recession hit, we had to diversify such that we could survive. And the company was run by a husband and wife team, both engineers, and the wife took over. And when you go to do that, to become a woman-owned business, you really have to go through a lot of hoops. For a year, she made sure all the finances were run by her, that she was doing the majority of the engineering. And sure enough, we got it at the end of the year. We got the women-owned business title. And from that, we went after PennDOT work, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. And if you have that title, 10 to 15% of the jobs go to certain companies have to hire a WBE or a SPE. And that just turned the company into something else. And up until that time, considering I've worked 50 years in the business, I didn't know what staking out a bridge for PennDOT or a highway until 10 years ago.
Right.
And now I've staked out 50 bridges.
Oh boy.
Just, you don't know where this is going to take you.
Absolutely.
It's tremendous. And I know I went into business because people said, you're not going to get anywhere financially if you don't have your own business. Well, I proved them wrong. First of all, I wasn't getting rich quick with my own business, and that may be my own fault. I don't know. But after that, I was given, if you do a good job, word gets around. And people offered me things I couldn't refuse.
You bet.
And here I am, very happy today.
So. Well, good. I guess developing your career in Pennsylvania, and what little I know, basically just a few times driving through, it to me seems like that would be a challenging terrain at times. because I'm, here I am. I, grew up in Illinois, Flatlander, whatever. I can see for miles. What's surveying like in Pennsylvania? What are some of the things you've done that you feel like are kind of unique to Pennsylvania?
Well, the very first survey job I had was prior to going into surveying. I worked a summer for the Pennsylvania State Game Commission because my brother-in-law was a surveyor, crew chief for the Game Commission. And that was going to I remember I worked that summer at one place, and it was in Tyrone, Pennsylvania, where the Game Commission line went right across the top ridge of a mountain.
Oh, boy.
And we would pack our lunches. We'd live in a hotel for 4 days or 4 nights. We'd pack our lunches in a cooler. We'd eat up on the mountain. And I was blazing trees and putting Pennsylvania Game Commission tags on the trees. They don't survey, they don't traverse around the lines, they traverse along the line.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just like cutting anything in the way. And it was interesting, but when it came time for a rain day, they sat and did their paperwork in the hotel while I used a honing stone and sharpened all the machete.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't fun. But that was there. That was surveying the mountains. And then where I've been in Southeast Pennsylvania, mostly in urban culture and city work. I've worked down in the city many times in Philadelphia. Do a lot of mostly suburban work, but now with the PennDOT work, I go as far as York and as far north as the border of New York. So I'm covering almost half the state with the places that we do work. And there's quite a bit of diversity just in that. I know several jobs. Here's a farm story. I had to survey a turkey farm when I worked for Tom Gibbons. And I still remember to this day, we were walking across the ridge and there was a fence there, and you could look down in a hollow and you saw these 2 big buildings that were, maybe 400 feet long. And you knew the turkeys were in there. And there's a tom turkey that walks around. He's like the guard. He's constantly up the hill. Okay. Well, there must be a certain time when they let all the turkeys out to get their exercise. I saw this. There was a horror movie when I was a kid called Day of the Triffids, when these plants attacked everybody. And I looked down. All I saw were hundreds of turkeys coming up the hill because they saw us. We were making noise. And we're working up there, and they're right across the fence. They're 4 or 5 deep. And the worst part was whenever you mentioned, like I'd say, take line.
Right.
It cackled. And you hear 400 turkeys cackling like that. You can't even talk to each other.
Oh, it's got to be loud.
That was a good experience. Then you turn around and do something like, if anyone's familiar with Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Pottstown was built, it's right next to the Schuylkill River, and there were 3 streams that went up through the town, and the city was built over those 3 streams. And they're starting to show foundation cracks in buildings, and they thought, well, something must be wrong here. Where are the streams? We don't know. We never had them surveyed. So we had to survey 3 half-mile streams going into the city. And then a lot of places there were inlets that left go loose into those creeks, I guess you would call it. And we had to survey the surface and the bottom. So as we're surveying through there, we're locating the inlets. And some places we were going through, it's all stream bed that we're walking on.
Mm-hmm.
Some it's 2 feet deep, some it's 6 inches deep. Some they could be 20 feet wide with a concrete arch, and that arch is only 3 feet high. Some we could be in a tunnel built by brick, and you can touch both sides with your hands, and 6 feet up is the roof of the brick. So it was really interesting. And sure enough, we were supposed to chart everything. We came to a point where we saw this cavernous hole on the side of the tunnel, and we went over, and I shined my light up, and I saw the bottom of macadam. And right away I thought, if somebody keeps driving over that, sooner or later it's going to collapse. And I remember meeting PennDOT officials up above, and I said, there's a problem down there. I said, we sow macadam. It should be right around here. And they said, well, there's nothing showing in the street that there's a problem. I said, well, what's that? Right there, the sidewalk was buckled and a lamppost was leaning over. That's where it was starting to collapse.
Oh, boy.
So it took about 6 cement trucks to fill that void. But yeah, so you had the variety, all different types of surveying. And now we do everything. We do highways up in the mountains, or we work down in Philly on a bridge. So
Sure. I want to take a step back into the actual organization of NSPS for just a little bit, because something that in the time that you and I've been in together, you've always been engaged with something on the educational side, whether you're teaching, whether it's Trigstar, which I'd like to talk about a little bit. There's always been something. And I guess, tell us about, what's this drive? What's this passion about talking about the education to the younger generations?
I found out a long time ago, in 1993, Pennsylvania has their Surveyors conference, and they average about 900 to 1,000 people that come to the conference. And especially now when we have continuing education credits. Well, it wasn't until I worked with Tom Gibbons that I found out that there was an educational institute in Pennsylvania, and there was actually a degree program for surveyors. And to this day, if I would have known that, I would be a teacher at college right now, because I love teaching. But in 1993, I started teaching with other gentlemen from our chapter down in the Delaware Valley, teaching a review course for the Surveyor's exam. And from that, blossomed into doing that at the state level for the conference. And then I moved out into separate directions there, and I was teaching basic survey math and applied survey math. And that's where I got to doing the trigonometry teaching. I also started teaching legal descriptions. In fact, I just did a legal description seminar recently. I did construction surveying. I did some boundary law. And that, it's just been such a passion. I really felt like I missed out on doing that. And to this day, I probably have about 200 credit hours just teaching. So, and then I heard, this is what got me into NSPS. There was at that time, now we have directors, but we used to have a governor from each state. And the governor from our state was Ed Northrup. And he told me that there's this program, Trigstar, and he knew I was teaching the courses at the conference for basic math. And I said, well, tell me about this Trigstar. And he said, it's actually going into schools and giving a test, telling kids about trigonometry, telling them, yes, don't bug your teacher that you're never going to use this the rest of your life, because you may be a surveyor and you will always use it.
Exactly.
So that's what I had to tell these people. The teachers just love it because they never had anything to apply it. So that spurred me on. I said, where can I join? They said they needed a chairman to spread Trigstar in Pennsylvania. So I went to my first NSPS meeting in San Antonio, Texas. It was just the executive board. It wasn't all the governors. And then there was a Trigstar committee, and I met there. And at that time, there was probably 12 people in that Trigstar committee. But I learned that was 2005. And it was only, I don't even think it was 2 years later that I took over the governorship for Pennsylvania. And meanwhile, I was doing Trigstar too. I have since passed Trigstar on, but I expected to get back into it, and then COVID hit, and I haven't been involved with it, but I expect to get back into it. So,
well, you've been a big proponent of Trigstar for many years. So like I said, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because there was, there are naysayers out there, and I think part of it is people don't realize it's the time that it takes to go into these classes to be able to teach this stuff. It's not like anybody's paying for it. It is volunteer time on the surveyor's part. So any return is significant. If you reach one student in there, that to me, that's well worth it. So,
yeah, and there was a lot of, I've had to fight that off a lot over the years. In fact, I've had people come up to me and say, I don't know one surveyor that came into surveying because of Trigstar. He said, that's not the point. How many students don't know what a surveyor is until we go into the school? And the teachers, there's a lot of teachers that have no idea what we do. And to see the glow in their face when I'm talking up there, and they're just like, wow, the teacher looks like Santa Claus is talking to them. It's amazing. So, I just think it's a great thing, and it really gets the point across that trigonometry is something that you could use and you may really like it. And so we put the test on, and I just think it's great. And it's not going to, as much as people say you're not going to get a surveyor by having Trigstar, I do know several occasions where there was I know several people that switched from civil engineering to surveying that had taken the Trigstar test. I know the state winner, the national winner one year was from Ohio State, and he was in civil and he switched to survey.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You never know. You never know. Like you said, and until we make that effort, if the profession makes that effort to broadcast who we are, what we are, and that's a way in. And like you said, being able to show the teachers and these students an application of this high level math, otherwise we've got nothing. And I think it's great all the time you've put in over the years. I want to step back for just a second, back into teaching, into the basics, into a lot of these classes. We've moved into an era where we've got so much technology, whether it's data collectors, it's all of this stuff. What do you tell a young student that says, yeah, I want to survey, but I've got this fancy data collector. I don't need to know any of that stuff behind the scenes. I just need to be able to know which buttons to push. Well, how do we convince them that they need to know those basics?
Well, that's the way I look at the basic math course that I teach. It's theory. It's like if you're a musician, you go to a music theory class just to know the basic and know what's making this tick. And you have a data processor, but what's the data processor doing? It's doing the trigonometry that it'd be good for you to know. You just have to, there's so many different things, like understanding highways and vertical curves. That's one where, it's real easy to plug in a formula, but to know what makes up a vertical curve, I always tell them, I don't want you coming back in here if your batteries run out. You figure out how to do it. just like so many places I've started working at. Now, I've been a manager. I was in the field for about 12 years, and I've been a manager ever since. And I've gone some places where I'm just starting. I don't know how these guys work. And they come back and, well, we couldn't stake that house because there was a dirt pile in the way.
Yeah.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? In fact, one of the places I worked, the guys that were working for me were both older than me. So here's this young guy coming in, right? And they were hand-fed a piece of paper with it had a coordinate for everything on it, but it also had the radial stakeout.
Mm-hmm.
And they never knew what the coordinate was. They just said, turn this angle and go this distance. And that's what they did.
Yep. Okay. Well, Mr. Bob Miller, Treasurer of NSPS, and all this wealth of knowledge, what is one good piece of advice for the future surveyor? Somebody that steps up and says, I see this profession. I think I get it. But what one nice piece of nugget of advice would you give to that person jumping into surveying?
I would say, first of all, if you love math, if you like working outside, if you like legal issues, if you like diversity, there is so much diversity in this business. If you're with a bigger firm or a small firm, you can still have diversity. It's up to you to make it. You can diversify the company. You can find a new task that you can do that no one thinks you can do. You can spread your arms into a certain field. And, when I think of what excites me in the field, I have to say a boundary survey, computing a boundary survey. If you like to put jigsaw puzzles together,
oh yeah,
love this job. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, not just the laws, but what you find in the field or your surveyors find in the field, how you put the mosaic together of the deeds and what works and what doesn't. It's just, there's so much involvement there. And there's not too many surveyors that get that opportunity. It's always good to share your knowledge, learn your knowledge outside and inside. Make sure that you get to work inside too, because it's not just going out in the field. You want to learn everything.
Yep, exactly. Oh, that's what I tell people. If you want to be just in the field, go be a farmer. This is a job that's everything. And people, like I said, until you really scratch the surface and explain it to people, they don't get all of the nuances of this job. And like you said, if you like math, if you like history, if you like solving puzzles, this is it. This is where you want to be. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you being on with us. We try to keep these to 30 minutes plus or minus, and we know you're a busy man as well. So we'll leave it off here, and we'll probably catch up with you again in the future and see how things are rolling along in the life of Bob Miller. So we appreciate you being here.
Jack.
So that's it.
Great.
Yes, exactly. And well, and that's just it. People need to understand that this is an association. This is the advocate for the national view for the profession. But it's everyday people. I mean, we still put our pants on the same way everybody else does, and it's nice to get to know the people behind all of the organization. So we appreciate everything you do for us. You've kept us fiscally responsible, and that's a big thing as well. All right, well, that's it for Surveyor Says this week. We've got a whole bunch of stuff good coming up in the month of March with Women's History Month as well, and a lot of National Surveyors Week as well in the middle of March. So My name is Tim Burch, and this has been Mr. Bob Miller. And from NSPS, we say good day. Thank you. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.